I'm Old Panther, and this is Rugby League news by fans, for fans. G'day guys, I just wanted to show you a clip from NRL 360. It's pretty good because we get some different perspectives on the issue. Of course, this idea that the Storm invented the Wrestle is still permeating through the media for some reason, which makes no sense at all to me. Call them out if you think they're doing something wrong. Call the NRL out for not reffing properly. But at least get your facts straight, because you end up convincing people of nonsense. Gotta love Icon though, he just doesn't seem to care if there's grubbiness in the game, and good on him for being honest.
Is this just another anti-Storm conspiracy, or does Cameron Smith have some explaining to do?
I don't know. Looking at that photo, you can see Bailey Simonson's ear bent in the photo, so clearly there's something to explain, isn't there?
The old bent ear. This is the winger.
Teddy, I defended them over the weekend, as you probably saw in my column today, because, look, I just think Storm are best at everything, attacking football, finding kids, turning them to good people, wrestling. But I can't defend that. I didn't know that had happened in the game. And, look, it's just a dumb, stupid play.
But just tell me again, let's get into some details. What exactly are you not defending here? Look at that. And so he is...
I'm saying I can't defend that photo.
I know you're not.
But what
are you not defending? What's he done? Rubbed his hand on his ear.
What he's done is the deliberate attempt... Ben, can I just say this, right? There's a big debate over all this Wrestle. People are critical of the Wrestle and the Storm.
But that's not Wrestle.
Hang on. The people defending the... But see, the Storm deflect the argument from that into everybody tries to slow down the play of the ball and everybody has wrestling techniques.
Yep.
This stuff borders on illegalities, which, look, these sorts of things have been around the game a long, long time. But what we see out of Melbourne when you have a history of the grapple, the crusher, the cannonball, the chicken wing, these are all illegal, since made illegal moves, which are designed to injure the opponent. Okay, not just make the tackle.
Are they designed to injure?
Well, yeah, when you cannonball, you're attacking the vulnerable knees. When you drop the rolling pin, you're basically dropping your knees into the calves of an opponent.
But it's to get them to submit, is it not?
But
well,
Candy, my problem...
the end result's injury.
My problem today was they're not the only club that wrestle. They're the best club at wrestling. 16 clubs wrestle.
Buzz, this is where you're getting sidetracked on the conversation.
I'm not getting sidetracked, Candy. Every club in the game wrestles.
Of course they do. Nobody disputes that. That's not the issue. And Storm do the good part of it better than anybody else, which we all acknowledge. But
is it grubby stuff? Is it their fault that the NRL erred last week by not suspending Nelson Asofa Solomona?
I think it's their fault because it's coached into them.
The match review committee should have grabbed it.
Of course they should have. It's their fault as well.
The same as Smith's getting concerning act letter over that.
Yes.
The NRL have been saying since 2004, Kenty, they're going to wipe out the Wrestle, and they haven't.
But I just want to bring this back to Cameron Smith, and I've kind of got this sense that it's almost like we want to arrive at a point where the world acknowledges that he's not perfect. Now, I understand that he's got grubbiness in his game, but a lot of the great players across time have, and there's no doubting that his competitive nature is going to push him past what's acceptable. But if that's where we land, what's so bad about that?
Because it's the holier than thou act that goes on around it, Ben. You're seeing it now with the way Melbourne are putting out all these conflicting stories. It's to try and take the focus off what they're actually doing down there. All these, they're systematically trained into the players.
But other clubs are putting out stories too and sending journalists videos and sending journalists still photos.
Because
you know why they're doing it?
Because they've had a gutful.
Because they tear away minor premiers and it's coming up to the finals.
Because they've had a gutful, Buzz.
Why don't they blow up about the Warriors had more charges? Because no one cares about them. Well, it is.
No, it's not. It's completely irrelevant.
Let's just go back to this tackle and have a listen to the exchange between Smith and referee Ben Cummins. So he's finding it laughable that he gets called out for rubbish on the face.
Yeah,
so this is, again, what he was penalised for and chipped for by referee Ben Cummins. And, I mean, I've got to be honest with you. Look, I don't think Cameron Smith is holier than thou. OK? I know he steps over the mark, but I never thought success ever had to be aesthetically pleasing. I don't care what the Storm say about him. He is what he is. He's one of the great competitors in our game. And occasionally, that stuff is going to creep into his game. But it happened for a lot of the great competitors across the history of our code.
Yeah, but we're even talking now about how
Ricky
he dressed
Stewart,
the
Tommy
referee.
Raudonikis. I mean, these are guys that push the limits.
But why did Ben Cummins just let that conversation drag on for so long? Why didn't he say to him, like most referees or the more senior referees, I've had my say, that's the penalty, see you later. And if he keeps doing it, sin bin him.
I don't know.
He was the one who allowed it to drag on.
They do it with other players.
Well, so referees should have pulled it up.
But
So there wasn't the only incident similar to the one we saw from Smith and Simonson. I mean, there was also the Bateman example on Smith, which actually happened before Smith, can I say it, return serve. Can we have a look at that?
Yeah, go for your life.
John Bateman, Cameron Smith.
But
So when was this?
you see Bateman there react to the Asafa Solomona elbow into Aidan Caesar's chest.
Yep.
He's upset about that. He's saying to the referee there, what are you going to do about this? So then he goes after Smith here. This is where the game's got to, Ben. And this isn't about attacking Melbourne or defending Canberra or either one. This is where we've got to because the referee and, more importantly, the match review committee
look at that.
and the game. Yeah, I'm not disputing that, Ben. I'm not disputing that.
So
it's
why
not
is
that-
Smith the grub and Bateman's not?
I'm not saying... Did I say that?
Kenny, it's not the back page photo tomorrow, that. It's Cameron Smith because it's Cameron Smith and he's the greatest player we've ever seen. And he
What's the problem?
and he does push the line.
Of course
you know,
does.
you know
just
how
said,
serious...
well, your mate has just admitted he goes over the line sometimes.
No, I'd never agree with Ben. I'm surprised about this. But you know how big they are on wrestling? They now employ, as a consultant, a guy called Adam Devich, who's an ex-NRL referee. And he actually does these wrestling sessions with them, with a whistle.
Buzz,
and he'll say, he puts it too hard, don't do...
This is my whole issue.
But the Roosters do it too. They have a referee.
Yep. My issue is with the Roosters too. My issue is everybody that does this because we have got to a place in the game where you have the spirit of the game has just been shot dead, okay? And we have all these coaches now who sit there and they say to the NRL, I want clarification on your interpretation on this rule. And then within that interpretation, rather than going back and say, listen, boys, we're allowed to do this, but we're not allowed to do that, which is the intent that the NRL is delivering the message, they go back and they say, OK, right, let's sit down, because this is what we're allowed to do, this is what we're not allowed to do, so let's figure out a way to push right up to this limit, and if we disguise it this way, we can pretend it's that, and that way we can get... They're trying to find ways to exploit the rules.
But that's how
16
professional
clubs
sport
are,
works.
No,
Kenty.
it's not. We're in other sport.
What the hell is the spirit of the game that supposedly gets breached? I can't figure this out. Now, I've asked people across the weekend, tell me what the spirit of the game
Not deliberately
is.
trying to hurt blokes and take them out of the game.
In a collision sport,
Look, there's way... Ben, come on, you're not a moron. Like, seriously, you can tackle hard, you can do your best. But to go out and to deliberately drop your knees into blokes, to put elbow pressure into their groins, to rub your knuckles along their temples, which is a soft spot on your head, to get in pressure points under your ears, that's all crap. And if you want to sit there and defend it because that's what you're after, then do your best, but it's not
Kenty,
right.
But it's not just
It's not right.
Melbourne Storm.
I have not said it is just Melbourne.
Yeah.
They're all doing it to certain degrees. Melbourne are sitting there going, playing victims because, we just work harder and do it better than everybody
they're
else.
playing victim because you're putting stories like that and you're writing that column, you're pointing out the Cameron Smith one he's done.
Don't worry,
And, mate,
John
I think
Bateman
it's
gets a mention in there as well.
I think it's a great story. I really think it's a great story.
The game has got to show some guts and fix it.
What annoyed me this morning, and it's not about Cameron Smith, it's about Shane Richardson at South Sydney coming out and slamming Melbourne Storm over their tactics.
He was right.
When they've had double the amount of suspensions in weeks than Melbourne Storm have had. And he talks about the big front rower getting off last week. Sam Burgess put a guy out of football for 2 weeks with a high tackle and didn't get suspended. And Richardson... 3 weeks before that, one of their players eye-gouged Robbie Farron, got 9 weeks. So here you got this bloke blowing up about Storm when his own backyard is twice as bad.
But he didn't defend his guys.
But he's still criticising Storm.
That doesn't make his criticism less valid because South's got more penalties. His criticism was, who invented the rolling pin? Melbourne. Who invented the crusher? Melbourne. Who invented the chicken wing? Melbourne.
You do know Manly had a wrestling coach in 1996.
Buzz, please.
Well, are you denying
please.
they had a wrestling coach?
They had a bloke called Norm Steele who brought in, who gave them wrestling as a form of conditioning. It wasn't jiu-jitsu, it was wrestling.
It's to play the ball down, Kenty.
No, look, Buzz.
You know those
please,
grand finals in the 1980s,
Buzz,
the scores were...
Who was the 96 captain of Manly?
Jeff Kirby?
Jeff Kirby. Just spoke to him out the back.
Yeah.
He said there's no way Norm taught... He didn't even remember Norm Steele being there until we told him his name because he denied they did any wrestling. The wrestling they did was...
He was there on the staff.
He got paid for wrestling. I know it says that. And look, let's be fair...
He wasn't doing massage, Kenty. He was there teaching them to slow the ball down.
It was not technique designed to maim opponents.
All I'm saying is...
Well, acknowledge that point then. Acknowledge that point.
Yeah, OK. Melbourne have excelled at wrestling, but I'm not sure they invented it.
Oh, please.
In the late 90s, the Broncos hired Australian UFC fighter Chris Haseman, who they claim was the very first wrestling coach in league. Apparently, brought in to coach body positioning, balance and turtling.
I've fallen, and I can't get up.
Enter John Donahue, an expert at jiu-jitsu who holds a black belt under Regan Mercado, and is one of 5 black belts under Gene LaBelle, who owns and runs John Donahue Jiu-Jitsu and MMA in Victoria. He first showed up on the rugby league scene in the early 2000s with the Brisbane Broncos when Craig Bellamy was assistant coach to Wayne Bennett. That's right, it wasn't the Storm who started all this wrestle business. It was the old master himself, who is now head coach at South, who brought this into the game.
All these players.
Where did the chicken wing come from?
What about
where did the rolling pin come from?
Have you looked at the 84, 85, 86 grand finals when the scores were 6-4, 7-6, 4-2 and the slow the ball... And if you looked at videos and how they were stopping blokes getting up to play them...
Yeah, but Buzz, that's not what we're seeing today. You're talking... That's a different game you're talking there. It's different incidents we're talking now.
But it was the same tactic, Kenty, of slowing the ball down.
And you know what? Back then we had a game that had the balls to fix it, and we don't have one now.
I don't know how they fix it, to be honest with you.
I'll tell you how they fix it. They start penalising blokes, sin-binning blokes and then suspending blokes.
For wrestling? Oh, I'm just not sure that
Kenty,
the alternative... I read your column on the weekend about the hit and drive tackle, but I'll go back to the late 90s. I mean, essentially it was a bloke in low and a bloke coming over the top to wrap up the ball. And what's happened is the bloke wrapping up the ball up top has just evolved into a wrestler.
Yeah.
I just don't know if high-speed collisions are any safer than catch and wrestle.
Well, you know what they've got to do then, Ben, and they did it, we've spoken about this before, when they wanted to outlaw punching, they put them in the bin and they suspended them. So we need a match review committee that's a lot stronger than the current one, who aren't going to let the Melbourne front rower get away what he did 2 weeks ago against South.
And we've also got a competition committee with supposedly the smartest people in the game who need to find the solution. I mean, they make the recommendations. They are the body that send up the recommendations to the Commission for rubber stamping. I mean, that's the process. So that's, and that's, as I'm led to believe, what is going to happen at the end of the year. Todd Greenberg was on record over the weekend, was that right?
Yes.
He wants Wrestle out of the game?
He told me he did.
You know, Ben, I went through the files today and I found a story in 2004 where the NRL said they were going to wipe out the Wrestle. 2004, Craig Bellamy's second year, they were going to wipe it out.
Because what we're doing though, Buzz, well, it's interesting you use that as the example of why, but what we're doing is simply we're changing the spectrum of where the point of argument is. So we cracked down, initially it was the grapple. We got rid of that out of the game. So they just changed it then to the chicken wing, OK? Then we got rid of that out of the game. Then it became the next one along the line. We got rid of that out of the game. At the end of the game's just got to say, you know what, guys, just get rid of it. And if you don't start getting rid of it, we're going to start sitting these blokes on the sideline until it's not there. Back in the days, the 70s, 80s, blokes used to run with their elbow up. They did that why? To protect themselves, but it was an individual thing. It wasn't a team practice thing designed to actually dominate and intimidate opponents the way it is these days. And this is where the coaches are spoiling for themselves. Phil Gould came out last week after the Brisbane game where Tavita Pangai got hit with the crusher tackle, and he said that doctors and lawyers are going to ensure we have no game in 20 years' time. Well, you know why? Because our coaches are pushing us into that area.
Oh, I don't know if that was because of the wrestle, mate. I think he was talking more about concussion and...
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah.
But he was talking about the Pangai tackle, which was a crusher tackle. Yeah. And that's because the coaches are taking us down that area. And I want to see, talk about spirit of the game. I want to see some coaches start showing some accountability towards a game that gives them a living.